I'm joining with Africa Energy Services Group. We are part of the organizing team together with Strathmore University and University of Helsinki. It is my great pleasure to welcome you today to LIPRI's webinar titled Grid Intelligence, Renewable Integration and Economic Growth, a Digital Pathway for Africa. We are so grateful for your time and presence, and we look forward to have an engaging and insightful session. So the webinar is hosted under the framework of LIPRI, which is the long-term joint European Union, African Union Research and Innovation Partnership on Renewable Energy. So LIPRI is a program of over 80 African and European institutions with 31 funded projects, working together to advance sustainable energy access and equitable development through joint research, innovation, capacity building, and strategy policy engagement. So today's webinar is part of a webinar series under the LIPRI clustering work package, where we have clustering sessions under thematic thematic clusters. And in today's cluster, which is grid digitization, we turn to a critical and timely topic, which is grid intelligence and renewable integration. And Africa's renewable energy potential is intense. And since we have wind corridors, geothermal fields, and hydro resources, yet the full realization of this potential depends on a modern, digitally enabled, intelligent grid structure. And so we are going to delve into much more of that during today's webinar. Please feel free to engage, ask questions, share your experiences, and connect with fellow participants, as it is a platform where we encourage collaboration and participation. Let me now hand over to Augusta, who will guide us through the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. That was great. My name is Augusta Njogo. I am a project engineer in Strathmore University, and welcome you again to this webinar. Thank you so much for coming. I'll just briefly go over the overview of grid digitalization and why we need it. So when you look at the 4 Ds of the energy transition, you usually have digitalization, of course, that's why we're here today. Democratization, which means that you're supposed to enable the masses to actually produce energy for themselves and for people around them. You have decarbonization, where we are now all switching to renewable energy fuels that have low carbon footprints. And then we also have decentralization, where now we are unbundling the centralized system of energy production. So we're here today to discuss digitalization and how it can be a way of promoting grid intelligence, renewable energy integration, and economic growth for the African continent. And we're going to be looking at some case studies that we have done under the LIPRI project to showcase how digitalization is actually for the betterment of energy systems in the continent. So I would like to read out our 2 speakers' profiles today, also from Strathmore University. We have Harrison Maura, who is a graduate electrical engineer with over 7 years of experience in solar PV and mini-grid development. He specializes in the design, installations, testing, commissioning, and digital integration of renewable energy solutions, including smart metering and grid reliability studies. His works on projects like the COSAP mini-grids have directly advanced Kenya's digital grid journey. He brings practical expertise in leveraging advanced technologies for efficient energy management and distribution, which is crucial for sustainable energy access. And our second speaker today from Strathmore is James Miano Wanjiru. He is a high-achieving scientist with over 8 years' experience in research and academia. He has a passion for solving Africa's greatest needs through science and research, having been involved in projects on climate change, energy transition, health, and mathematical analysis. He has built his research expertise by successfully implementing research projects for diverse clients, including the DOSH, I will not say JZ because I don't know how to speak German, but JZ, International Finance Corporation, IFC, Tetra Tech International, and various universities. He holds a master's in science in pure mathematics and a bachelor in science in mathematics and computer science from the Multimedia University of Kenya. He serves as a data collection and analysis expert at the UNESCO Chair on Climate Change, Resilience, and Sustainability, and is also a fellow of the 2025 Open Power Africa program. Our speakers, please turn on your camera so we can see you. Oh, sorry, Jovia. I'm so sorry. I forgot to introduce my co-moderator. We have Jovia Namtewa. Please, Jovia, take the floor. I am so sorry. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you very much for that introduction, Augusta. I will be co-moderating with Augusta, like she mentioned. I just wanted to also introduce our third speaker from the Leopard project, and that's Claudia Vanucci, who is a research engineer at AFA. I'm working in the local multi-energy systems research group. Claudia has 4 years of experience in energy systems and poly generation and holds a degree in energy engineering with studies completed in Bologna, Barcelona, and Stockholm. She focuses on sustainable and integrated energy solutions. So today we're going to have 2 speakers, just like Augusta has mentioned, and then Claudia also comes in. So I think as Augusta is asking the speakers to show themselves, we'll have a bit of housekeeping rules. And just as we're going over that, we'll read the housekeeping rules and then we can get into the session. Thank you.
Jovi, you're muted.
Sorry, I keep doing this. Could our presenters please have give us a short say a short hello, introduce themselves just briefly, and then we get into housekeeping and get into the session. Thank you. Harrison, would you like to go first? And then James, and then Claudia.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. My name is Harrison Maura. I'm a power systems engineer by training. By practice, I'm a renewable energy engineer. I've worked in the Kenyan power sector, all the way from the geothermal industry to the solar industry. Of note, and what is very relevant to this webinar is my experience in the mini grids, because that is going to form the core discussion in our webinar today. And that's much about me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Harrison. Looking forward to your session, and I think James next.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is James Miano Wanjiro. I'm currently serving as a data analyst at Strathmore University, but I also have experience working with organizations and other universities in this capacity of a researcher in projects on climate change, energy, efficiency. So we will get to interact as the session continues. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for that. And Claudia.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Claudia, and yes, I work at the European Institute for Energy Research now for 4 years roughly. My background is in energy engineering with a specialization in power generation system and generally like sector integration and sector coupling. So in that frame of mind, I will bring today forward the perspective of this microgrid and digital tools that we have built in-house at IFER and how we use them in the LEAPROI project. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Looking forward to that session. So just short housekeeping again, like Augusta mentioned, we do apologize for the technical hitch. We started slightly late, but we're going to try to catch up with the time. I think many of us have been through webinars, but please do remember, keep your microphone off unless you have been invited to speak. We also encourage you to actively participate. This is going to be more like a conversation, so please do participate. You can use the chat function if you have any question, or raise your hand and any of us will give you the opportunity. Because of time, we're going to try our best to rush through. This is supposed to be a 2-hour session. We're going to try to rush through and catch up with the time. But also please be aware that we have some questions prepared just for your feedback regarding the webinar in form of Slido. So please look out for them when we post them. When we post the link, it will just pop up, and I think my colleague Augusta will take us through that. And finally, let's just be respectful to each other, to the speakers, and also to one another, and let's have an enjoyable session. Thank you, and let's. I think we can dive right into it. Augusta, back to you.
Thank you, Jovia. As Jovia said, it's a very interactive session, so feel free to ask questions, raise your hand. You can use the emojis to react as well, clap, send flowers, that kind of deal. So for now, we can jump into the first session, which is from Harrison and James. So please, I don't know who of you want to start first.
I can start sharing.
Please go ahead.
So I hope you can now see my screen.
Yeah, could you make it full screen? Oh, perfect. Oh, we're seeing your notes slides instead of the full screen. Could you go back to the full screen rather than the speaker's notes section? Yeah, there we go.
So once again, good morning. My name is James Miano. I'm a data analyst at Strathmore University, and today we'll be presenting together with Harrison Maora, my colleague, as well as Strathmore University. Our discussion is titled Renewable Energy Integration and Digitisation. We will be majorly looking at Kenya. So we will start by looking at our shared vision, which is powering Africa. And this is also part of LIPRI's mission, which is to create a long-term partnership of African and European stakeholders to develop renewable energy as sustainable, reliable, and affordable source of energy for all in Africa. This is well aligned with global and continental goals. This includes the Sustainable Development Goals that we aim to achieve. In particular, there's the SDG 7, which entails a focus on universal access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable and modern energy for all. This is also aligned with our continental goal, which is Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. This Agenda 2063 is Africa's blueprint for inclusive growth and sustainable development. It envisions an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, which is driven by its own citizens. As well, for Agenda 2063, universal access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity is foundational to its achievement. We can now look at one of the LIPRI's initiative, which is SETADISMA, which stands for Sustainable Energy Transition and Digitalization of Smart Microgrids for Africa. SETADISMA is currently being implemented in Kenya, Rwanda, and Algeria, with the lead partner being Politecnico di Milano. On the Kenyan side, the contributing partner is Strathmore University of Kenya. The objective of SETADISMA has been to study brown and greenfield mini-grids. There are 4 primary actions that are currently ongoing. There's the technological research, which entails identifying the optimal mix of renewable energy generation technologies. There's energy planning, which entails the use of data to match local energy resources with community demand. There's digitalization, which entails building smart, efficient, and resilient microgrids. There's capacity building. This includes training the next generation of African energy experts, including through free online training courses via the EDAP platform. I can attest to the comprehensiveness of these courses, having taken 2 of them. That is the one on data on renewable energy and the assessment of renewable sources. I also plan to do the rest. And one of the achievements of SETADISMA has been the enhancement of microgrid SPI, which is an open source tool for optimizing mini-grid design to better suit local African energy context. So we have two major key advancements that have been achieved. This has been the modeling of third generation microgrids, which can be grid tied, and there has also been the two objective optimization, which has entailed the minimization of cost and GHG emissions. Next, we look at now the local case study that allowed us to achieve the two achievements, the two advancements. So the objective of this case study was to understand energy access challenges in off-grid communities. And this was based in Faza Island. So the community overview is that Faza Island is one of the 7 villages of Pate Island in Lamu County. Pate Island has a population of over 17,000 people. To serve these 17,000 people, a mini grid was built in Faza Island in 2016. It was commissioned in 2017, and it is operated by KPLC, which is the Kenyan distributor and utility. Then the problem that was discovered for this case study was that the mini grid was 100% reliant on expensive and polluting diesel generators. There were also frequent outages and affordability challenges for the low-income users. So to understand this, to get a comprehensive understanding of the Faza Island problem, a comprehensive data collection campaign was launched, and this entailed both door-to-door surveys and stakeholder interviews. The collected data included usage, payment capacity, and quality of life. The aim of this was to inform a renewable energy transition tailored to local needs. So the key findings were that diesel is unsustainable because of the high operational costs. These are the cost of buying the diesel and then maintaining the mini grid. There was a supply chain risk. So you could find that sometimes transport delays. So that meant people went without power. Then there was the environmental impact because of the mini grid is reliant on diesel, so we are constantly burning diesel. Then the other finding was that energy demand is diverse and critical. So there was the finding that electric power isn't just for lighting. It is also crucial for productive uses like fish cold storage, healthcare services, and education, with each having unique demand patterns. Each of these has unique demand patterns. Then there was the discovery that there's a significant hybrid potential, whereby data confirmed that a hybrid system, which combines Kenya's abundant solar and wind resources, is technically feasible and can meet the island's needs reliably. So this led us to come up with 3 policy recommendations. So we saw that there's a need to prioritize hybrid renewables for off-grid areas. So there's a need to actively plan to transition isolated diesel mini grids to more resilient and cost-effective hybrid and solar wind systems to take advantage of the resources that we have. There's also a need to use data to design and operate for impact. So this mandates detailed demand-side data collection before any design of a new system. A one-size-fits-all, the case study allowed us to see that a one-size-fits-all approach leads to inefficiency and failure. Then we also saw that there's a need to integrate economic and social planning. So we need to develop business models and tariff structures alongside the technical design, and this will ensure long-term affordability and community benefit. So in conclusion, from the further case study, we saw that every challenge was presenting us with an opportunity. So the reliance on costly and unreliable diesel powers mirrors the challenge faced by many off-grid areas in Kenya. And this also limits the achievement of the current goals that we are aiming for, that is SDG 7, that is affordable power and clean energy, and the Agenda 2063, which is Africa's vision. But this challenge presented us with an opportunity whereby we can develop a national roadmap to systematically transition isolated diesel mini grids to resilient hybrid solar and wind systems. The second lesson was that the research proved that energy is critical for economic activities like cold storage. So energy is not just for basic lighting. And this now gives us the opportunity to align energy policy with the specific productive needs of communities to drive economic growth. And in so doing, we're able to make progress towards Agenda 2063. The other lesson was that without detailed data, any solution for FASA would have been inefficient. This reflects a wider national data gap. So the opportunity was that there is a need to invest in nationwide data collection and smart grid technologies to optimize our energy infrastructure and maximize the impact of energy investments. Now that we have had a look at a local context, we can look at the nationwide context. So we see that, so in the chart there on our right, we see the access rate to electricity. This gives us a snapshot of 2010 to 2023. In the red continuous line, we're able to see that Kenya has made significant progress with access being at 37% in 2010 and jumping to 79% in 2023. In particular, the urban access is now universal, as shown in the purple line. However, rural access remains a frontier. It has only jumped from 30% to 70%, so we still have some people who do not have access to electricity. However, we see, as we'll see in the next slide, we'll see that this bold shift has been made possible by indigenous and renewable energy sources. So as of 2024, Kenya's generation landscape was at least 81% of it was made up of clean energy. So there's geothermal, which stands at 39.81%. For this, we leverage the Rift Valley sources for stable baseload power. We have hydro at 24.74%. However, this is seasonal, and it is mostly relied on during the wet cycles. During periods of drought, this tends to drop. Then we have wind, which stands at 13.46%. We have Turkana Wind Farm and others, including the one in Kajiado, which boosts supply. Then we have solar. This stands at 3.15%. It's rapidly growing, especially in off-grid areas. Now, so to get to 100%, we also depend on thermal, which is costly and polluting. This is being phased out. Then we have imports at 10.41%, and this is from Uganda and Ethiopia. Nonetheless, Kenya has the national goal of achieving 100% clean energy by 2030. This is in line with its NDC commitments. NDC commitment to achieve to reduce GHG emissions by 32% by 2030, and achieving 100% clean energy is part of this plan. And we believe that this is not only aspirational, but it's actionable. Why we say this is if we look at the estimated potential that we have against the installed capacity. So in our table here, we can see that geothermal, the current installed capacity is 985 megawatts, but the estimated potential is 10,000 megawatts. So this means that we're only utilizing 9.85% of the potential that we have. Hydro, the installed capacity stands at 839.5 megawatts, whereas the estimated potential is at 3,000 megawatts. So this translates into a 27.9% utilization rate, still low. Then for wind, we have the installed capacity is 435.5 megawatts. However, the estimated potential is 3,000 megawatts. This translates into 14.52% utilization rate. For solar, our current installed capacity is 210.3 megawatts. However, our estimated potential stands at 15,000 megawatts. This now translates into 1.4% utilization rate. For bioenergy, the installed capacity right now is 2 megawatts, but our estimated potential is 1,000. So this translates into a utilization rate of 0.2%. So we have much power that we have much potential that we are not taking advantage of. However, the access rate that we have just seen in the previous slide has been made possible by the progress that we see here for the installed capacity. And this has been made possible by several key policies. This includes Kenya Vision 2030. This is Kenya's long-term development blueprint. and it aims to transform the country into a middle-income industrializing nation. And this will only be possible if we have reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy. We also have the second one is the Kenyan National Electrification Strategy, which was launched in 2018. This gives us a roadmap to universal access via grid expansion, mini grids, and solar home systems. We have the Energy Act of 2022, and this allowed us the establishment of our regulator, which is EPRA, the establishment of REREC, which serves as an enabling institution, and also the introduction of feed tariffs and retail licensing, which allows us to unlock private sector participation in renewable energy. So those frameworks allowed us to implement several projects and partnerships. This has included COSAP. So here the last mile connectivity. So we were able, through the last mile connectivity project, over 314,000 households who are near transformers are connected. There is also the ongoing expansion with new distribution infrastructure. This includes new transformers and distribution lines. There's the COSAP. This has targeted 14 undeserved counties in Kenya through 120 mini grids. There's also the 250,000 solar home systems through the pay-as-you-go model. There has also been the electrification of schools, health, clinics, and water pumps with solar. Another project has been the Kenya Electricity Modernization Project. This includes the expansion of access to electricity and the improving reliability of electricity service. However, as we'll see in this slide, we'll see that access is not equal to affordability. So Kenya, according to the 2019 national census, has 9.1 million households. 1.7 million of them live in urban areas and 7.4 million live in rural Kenya. However, we have seen that urban electricity access is currently at 100%, but as we see in the green bar here, only 0.4% are using electricity to cook. So for most in urban areas, they're using LPG, it stands at 63.3%. Another 70.2% are using charcoal. This points to the issue of affordability. We also look at rural areas. E-cooking is even lower, which stands at 0.1% as shown. For most in rural areas, they are depending on wood, it stands at 81.2% as shown in the orange bar here. Another 9.4% use LPG, and another 7.8% use charcoal. So these statistics are pointing to a reality that electricity access alone is not enough, and affordability remains a major barrier. Another concern has been that access is not equal to reliability. And we can be able to conclude this looking at data from July to December of 2022, the same time period of 2023 and 2024. So we have three indices that we'll use to show that. We have the CAIDI, which is the Customer Average Interruption Duration Index, and this measures the average duration of outages per customer. So that is the blue in our chart, and we see that it has increased from 2.245 hours in 2022 to 2.558 hours in 2024. And this is above the regulator's target of 2.45 hours. Then we have the SAIDI, which denotes the System Average Interruption Duration Index. And this measures the total duration of interruptions per customer per month. We see that this has risen, this is given by the green bar. This has risen from 7.591 hours in 2022 to 9.15 hours in 2024. This is well above the regulator's 3.25 hours per month target. Finally, we have the SAIFI, which is the System Average Interruption Frequency Index. And this measures the average number of interruptions per customer per month. We see that this has risen from 3.373 interruptions per month in 2022 to 3.570 interruptions per month in 2024. This is also above EPRA's target of 3.25 hours. So through these figures, we're able to see that although electricity access has expanded, outages are becoming more frequent and lasting longer. And through the issues of affordability and reliability, we limit our achievement of our goals, including Kenya Vision 2030, achieving SDG 7, and achieving Agenda 2063. So in conclusion, we see that we have seen that we have issues that we are currently facing. That includes we are not yet at universal access, mostly in rural Kenya, and we also see that we have challenges of affordability and reliability. However, this should not be the case. As we see, we have much untapped potential. This includes over 9,000 megawatts of geothermal, over 2,000 megawatts of hydro, over 2,000 megawatts of wind, over 14,000 megawatts of solar, and over 1,000 megawatts of bioenergy. If we are able to tap into this, we would achieve universal access in Kenya, and we would also solve the challenges of affordability and reliability. And that is the end of my presentation. The rest of the discussion will be guided by my colleague Harrison. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James, for that. Thank you for the insights, especially data. I know for many of the participants here, not everybody is from Kenya, so the examples and what James has presented is basically about Kenya, but we will go into other jurisdictions as well. And I think we are happy to also hear from Harrison. And then I think we'll take questions because I see there's some questions that have come through the chat, but I think we can take them after Harrison's presentation. Thank you. I think as Harrison is working on his presentation, please share with us where you're coming from, which country you're joining us from. We want to see the different jurisdictions that have been represented here. Also, let us know about the grid digitalization status of your country. I think we'd love to hear that as well. We'd love to hear from you and see how we can compare the different jurisdictions that we're discussing and see if there are any solutions that we can even come up with throughout this session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. In my presentation, I'll build on what James has presented. And the first bit of this one, I'm going to discuss the limitations of the on-grid primary renewable resources in Kenya. These are basically the lessons that you have learned here in the country. So let's dig into
apologies, Harrison. Could you full screen your presentation?
Let me see. It's full screen.
Would you fight if I presented, or you're okay?
Great.
Okay, great.
Good.
It works. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to discuss the limitations of the on-grid primary renewable energy sources, the lessons that we have learned here in Kenya. Now, we can start with hydropower, and a significant percentage of our power generations come from the hydropower. It has been a cornerstone of our grid for decades, but it has two major vulnerabilities. The first one is the geographical centrality. Over 72% of our hydro capacity is located on a single river system, that is the River Tana's Seven Forks system, and this creates a massive single point of failure. Secondly, and more critically, is its dependence on weather and climate. The capacity of the reservoirs in the Seven Forks system is almost entirely tied to the rainfall in Mount Kenya and Nyandarua ranges. With climate change bringing more erratic rainfall and prolonged droughts, our hydro generation becomes unstable. The national consequence is that during droughts, we have to turn on expensive diesel generators, which drives up the cost of electricity for everyone. The other source is geothermal, which also has a similar challenge to what we have in the hydro. We are world leaders in the geothermal power generation, and it provides us with stable baseload power. However, all of our developed capacity is located in one single region, that is Nakuru County. This is in the areas of Olakaria, where we have most of our power stations. There is also what is being developed in Suswa, it is in Nakuru County. There is what is being developed in Menengai, that is also in Nakuru County. Again, this creates a geographic single point of failure. There is also a hidden environmental risk. The health of the geothermal reservoirs is linked to the water levels of Lake Naivasha and the surrounding groundwater on the western side of the Nyandarua ranges. The recharge of the geothermal takes about 10 to 15 years. Climate change and water overuse in the region pose a direct and a long-term threat to our most reliable energy source. This centralization makes our grid, makes our entire grid quite vulnerable. Now we enter into our new sources, that is in wind and solar. They too have challenges. The first is geographical centrality. In as much as Kenya has a vast potential in solar and wind, most of our large-scale wind capacity is in Marsabit County, that is in the Lake Turkana wind power, whereby we have 310 of our about 400 megawatts is in Marsabit County. Also, the biggest chunk of our large-scale solar plants are was in Gishu County. And again, this repeats the problem with centralization. The second is a technical challenge of variability. Solar only works during the day, and wind is also inconsistent. These resources are inverter-based, meaning that they lack the physical inertia of the traditional turbines, which can make the grid more fragile. Without massive investment in batteries and smart controls, managing this intermittency is difficult and can force us to curtail or waste available clean energy to protect the grid. The core challenge here is a question of centralization versus universal access. Our grid philosophy is designed as an energy superhighway built to move more power from large remote generation hubs to our major road centers, mostly in our big cities. The fundamental barrier this creates is that for communities living far away from these highways, the cost of grid extension is simply prohibitive. This creates a deep energy divide. where regions remain in the dark because they are too far from the centralized backbone. This model is the single biggest obstacle to achieving truly universal and equitable energy access to all Kenyans. A good example of that is that in the map that you can see here, we have the major power stations in the country, as you can see. Most of them, or the grid, because they also form a part of the grid, they form around 38% of the Kenyan landmass. The biggest chunk of Kenya, and that is the rural area, the rural areas of Kenya, they are not connected to the grid. But the good thing is that we do have the solutions to the challenges. There are lessons that you have learned from the microgrids and the mini grid. Let's discuss these lessons and the solutions to these challenges. And lesson number one is that we need a shift in the philosophy of the grid to centralized power. So instead of trying to bring all the people to the centralized grid, we must be bringing the grid to the people. And you do this through solar PV mini grids. Now, a solar mini grid is a small-scale independent electricity network that serves a particular or a specific community. And mostly these are the communities that live in isolated areas, mostly in the rural, drier areas of Kenya. A mini grid is powered by solar panels, it's supported by batteries, and oftentimes there's a backup diesel generator for 24/7 reliability. Now, the mini grid operates completely independent of the grid, providing clean and modern energy directly to where it is needed. This approach directly tackles the root problem of centralization. A good example to this problem of centralization and a mini grid is the Wasini mini grid that we have shown on the map on the south coast of Kenya. It is on an island. There's a population with about 4,000 households there. So it is very expensive to extend the grid to the Wasini Island. But to solve this issue, we have a 700 kilowatt that was built under the Kenya Electricity Modernization Project, 700 kilowatt, that is serving around the 4,000 households of the people in the Mkwiro village. So that said, this shift is not just a theory from the national grid to the mini grids. It's not just a theory, it is being implemented across Kenya today. We have a robust and a growing ecosystem of mini grids. Public entities such as Kenya Power operate about 26 distinct off-grid networks, forming a strong foundation. The private sector is also a major driver, with the developers such as Renewable and RVE operating dozens of sites. The African Mini Grid Developers Association reports about 150 sites by last year, and the government's flagship COSAP program is aggressively scaling this model, targeting the development of around 140 new solar mini grids in the 14 marginalized counties in Kenya. The goal is clear. Use this proven technology to close the energy access gap for all the citizens of Kenya. We have a map here that is showing the distribution of the solar PV mini grids. The ones that are in red, these are the already existing mini grids. You can see these mini grids, they cover the biggest part of the 14 ASAL counties. The blue ones are the currently being developed COSAP mini grids. I believe the testing and the commissioning phase and the handovers of the same should be on the March or April of next year. So as you can see, this map gives you the strategy in action. You can see the concentration of these existing, the developed, and the planned coastal mini grids, primarily located in the coastal areas and the ASAL counties, precisely the areas that have been historically underserved by the centralized national grid. This is targeted, data-driven development. Now, crucially, mini grids are not just basic grids. They are built on a foundation of smart digital technology. And I'm going to mention a few aspects of this. This starts with the GIS techniques for the precise site surveys and planning. I have been involved in quite a number. For example, in the desert area, you have runoff water, you have lagers. You are able to trace where the runoff water passes so that you can choose the most optimum location for your mini grids. We are also able to access the solar resource and the meteorological data from licensed solar PV design softwares. And this is a requirement by the funders and the implementers of the project. And this is going to be to ensure that there's going to be a very high performance ratio of these mini grids. On top of that, weather stations are installed for real-time data collection. And this is data in terms of the ambient temperature of the irradiance data, the direction and the speed of wind, because all these factors they do affect the production of the solar PV plants, and so on. Also, on the protection system of these mini grids, we have numerical relays for instant fault detection and sophisticated energy management systems to manage the power flow out of the mini grids to the clients. Every battery system in these mini grids has a battery management system for safety and longevity. And we use SCADA systems and smart meters for remote monitoring, control, and transparent billing and two-way communication between these power station mini grids and the customers on the other side. This is a digital-first approach that makes the entire system more efficient and reliable. Then what can we learn from these mini grids? What lessons can we borrow that we can use to solve the problems that we have in our grid? These smart technologies can help us solve the challenges on the mini grid. Grid congestion and high technical losses are the major issues, mostly caused by the aging infrastructure and the lack of granular data. The solutions lie in deploying advanced distribution management systems and using GIS for network mapping and the rolling out of smart meters on a large scale. These are going to allow the transfer of power from the power stations or from the grid to the consumers on the other side, and also the transfer of information from the consumers to the grid operators. By use of data analytics platforms and load flow simulation tools, we can move from being reactive to being predictive, anticipating problems and planning upgrades before they become critical. Ultimately, decentralization with more mini grids can help interface with the main grid. That can interface with the main grid will also help to relieve congestion. I should note that one of the design parameters of the mini grids is that the implementers of the project, the contractors, they have to ensure that they are going to offer a solution whereby should the main grid arrive in these isolated areas, then the grid will be able to interface with these mini grids. The possible digital solutions that you can use for the grid connection and the weak distribution networks, we've listed them here, all the way from machine learning tools to load flow simulations, distribution, advanced distribution management systems, and the geographic information systems for networking. The other challenge, as we noted earlier, is that smart technology is key to solving the intermittency challenge of the wind and solar. The solution is to use advanced forecasting tools to improve predictability. This involves integrating real-time satellite and weather data, using numerical weather prediction models, deploying of AI and machine learning systems that can help get progressively more accurate over time. By combining this with GIS resource mapping and demand-side forecasting from the smart meters, we can create a highly predictable and dispatchable renewable energy system. That said, with the legacy grid, which is our current power system, we can see that on this map, you can see the area that is covered. We have the power stations here, we have the distribution networks and the primary centers. When we add the mini grids, we interface them with the main grid. You can see that by 2030, we will have a very smart power system. We will have a very smart power system that is going to make our energy access universal and more reliable. In conclusion, Kenya stands as a leader in renewable energy, but faces significant challenges of reliability, affordability, and equity due to the centralized grid model. The path forward is a strategic pivot to a decentralized grid of grids approach. By leveraging smart digital mini grids, as demonstrated by the SETA-DISMA project and scaled by initiatives like the COSAP and the KEMP projects, that is the Kenya Electricity Modernization Project, we can overcome these challenges. The approach will not only help us to achieve 100% clean energy transition, but will also build a more resilient, equitable, and a prosperous future for all Kenyans. So what does this lead to? The slide, this conclusion slide, it shows the transformation that we envision. On the left, you can see the our current system, a few large centralized power plants with one-way power flow, leaving many behind. On the right is the power system that we envision in 2030. It is a hybrid model, a grid of grids. The strong centralization backbone remains, but it is complemented by hundreds of smart decentralized mini grids. Decentralized mini grids. It is a system characterized by two-way flows of power and data, resilience, and universal access. As a point of addition, I should note that in this kind of a system, this is actually one of the first step that the country is taking to having a complete smart grid. And that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Harrison. Thank you for that great presentation. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is, like you mentioned, that instead of bringing people to the grid, we must bring the grid to the people. And I think for me, it would point more towards better policy alignment that is in tune with the relevant grid digitalization needs through affordable, smart digital grids, mini grids. I know I think we're doing well with time because there were about 5 minutes to go. And I think it could be a great time for us to go for a short break before we get into the next session with Claudia. But then also, I think Augusta, maybe this is a good time for us to start with a bit of the Slido questions.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
yeah.
I see there's also some questions. I don't know if we can do them before we go for the break.
I think we can do them before we go for the break. It will be a short break, probably 5 to 10 minutes, nothing more. And then we can have maybe a response to some of the questions. I noted there's a question that came in from Claudia, although you had addressed it. Let me just pick it out quickly. Yes, she asked, do we know why the number and duration of outages has increased? I think this probably is best addressed by James. James, are you able to address this question?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I think Harrison has also spoken about it. We have challenges like grid congestion. So we have challenges on the generation side. So we have hydropower, times of drought, this drops. We have challenges on the grid infrastructure. So we have a legacy system. We also have maintenance deficiencies, and we also have system and commercial losses, which are currently very high. Also on the consumer side, we have strain. This is brought about by industrial expansion and urbanization. So all these are contributing to a less reliable system. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, James. Claudia, I think James has handled that pretty well. There's just one other question that I've seen, and that's how do you see nuclear energy fitting into Kenya's broader renewable energy transition, and what role can smart infrastructure play in that integration? I don't know if Harrison, you can take a bite at this, or James.
Thanks for the question. That's a very interesting question, considering that right now the country is working on its national nuclear strategy. The thing about nuclear power is the reliability. So long as you have the nuclear fuel, so long as you have ample cooling, and you are able at least to have a single, like in Kenya, we do not have such a very high demand. You're able to have a single nuclear plant that may bear over the base load. And then with the fact that there have been the locations that have been floated of putting up these power plants in Busia and the other one in Kilifi. Again, this is going to solve the question of decentralization, considering, for example, like in the coastal regions, we have issues with low voltages and frequency fluctuations and so on. So assuming that you have a nuclear plant in Kilifi, I think that is going to stabilize the power in those areas. And then nuclear power is also very reliant on data and the processing of the data. And so that is going to increase the reliability of the grid, the smart technologies. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, very well. Thank you very much, Harrison. I think Harrison and James deserve a round of applause. You can react using the react button to show them that you are happy with the presentation, but please feel free to share more questions as they come through the chat. They're still going to be with us, and we hope to hear back from them even after Claudia's presentation. So, Augusta, do you think we should now do the Slido or jump into the break as the Slido is running?
All right, I think you can jump into the break so that guys can also get up, stretch, maybe get some coffee. For those
Yeah.
in Kenya, you can get something warm to drink because it's struggling out here. So let me present the Slido. Then we can, as you go about your day for the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which one do you prefer?
Let's do 5. We'll
Okay.
try our best to get back here by about 11:28 or 12:28. Yeah, so that at about past, we're getting into the next session.
Okay, great. So you can just you can scan the QR code, or you can also go to slido.com and then put in the code 23154886, and then we can just yeah, it's just like a quick icebreaker, just to understand how the audience is, how you're feeling, how much do you understand about digitalization, what do you think is needed when it comes to grid digitization and that kind of deal. So we can do this for the next 6 minutes.
Okay. I see we've got 1 minute to get into the next session, so I hope everybody is back, or at least we are trying to wind down on the poll that is on Slido. Please do give us your feedback, because it's very important for us even going forward, and to curate better webinars and discuss the relevant topics. So please do respond to the polls that we are posting. And as we get ready for our next speaker, I'd like to welcome you back. Hope you've had a refreshing short break. And we're now moving into more examples of real world implementation through interesting case studies. And Claudia will take us through this session. We did already provide a profile, and she introduced herself. And I think based on this, one of the most valuable aspects of the LIPRI initiative is, opportunities to learn from actual projects that are implemented and that are implementing innovative solutions across Africa, and also with examples from Europe, or we borrow from Europe, or they learn from us as well. And today we are privileged to hear particularly from the Leopard project, which is a project that is part of LIPRI and has been developing and implementing microgrid solutions in Senegal and Benin. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Claudia for her presentation on that case study, and we look forward to learn. Thank you, and welcome, Claudia.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll be sharing my screen. And I will also have a small surprise for you, if you will. So yes, you see here, it's me and also two other colleagues that worked on this specific replicability study. So basically, we tried to see how we could replicate the solution that we have installed in Senegal and Benin. And today with me will also be Isaac Boat, and he is the developer of one of the tools that we use in the project. So you will see him taking the lead on those slides. So yes, a brief agenda of what we're going to talk about today. I'll try to keep it brief so that we have time for questions. So yes, just a general introduction to the solution that was implemented and how we intend to replicate it or study the replication analysis in Benin and Senegal. Methodology that was used, obviously, to carry out this replication, which input data would be required to carry out a similar replicability study with the tools that we used, and some results and final conclusions. So basically, we would start by presenting the installation that was carried out. So within the Leopard project, we have installed in Benin a small demonstrator to understand, yes, as we said, learning from the data collected and understand which kind of sizes is needed in terms of technologies and how much demand is there, generally just learning from a hands-on project. So basically, this was the microgrid solution that you see in the bottom left. So it was comprised, as was already mentioned, I think, in the previous presentation. I think they did a great job in presenting the overall current situation and future situation. So it was a hybrid solution. So we learned already from moving from 100% fossil fuel based energy to a more sustainable energy production. So it was a diesel engine, but it was also a PV system with a battery. So to maximize the amount of renewable energy that was supplying the electricity demand. And then basically we wanted to replicate this kind of solution and assess the replicability potential in Benin and Senegal. So how did we do that? So we started from Lenny, and now I would hand it over to Isaac.
Yeah, thanks. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Lenny is sort of a collection of utilities that are mostly for geographic analysis, because one of the first things we had to do was actually locate sites within the target countries that would actually be suitable to replicate the microgrid, within its local context. And so we used a lot of different open data sources, honestly, from building footprints to population estimation data to just other local contextual data like the location of healthcare facilities or telecommunications towers, which could serve as anchor clients. And essentially we would apply a clustering algorithm to them to identify clusters of population that are both within a target range of population size and also spatial extent of the polygons. And then we would also run an algorithm on it, which is called the Pathfinder, which is capable of using the existing infrastructure, usually the roads, to create a sort of simulated outline of the network that would be required. So we get an idea of the length of cabling required to actually replicate the or to build a network that would connect all of the clients together and serve them with electricity. And so all of this information was then compiled into an interactive map, which could be explored by by anyone who has access to the report and the final results, as well as the raw data, which could then be used as the basis for analysis, either visual analysis of actually looking at the grid layout and the locations of settlements, or also to analyze the actual grid topology to simulate like an electric grid operation on it. And then also an Excel file, which was used to then be able to filter the rows and do just any kind of we wanted to be as flexible as possible in delivering valuable formats that would be good for any stage of then carrying out a replication study on any of these sites. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thank you. And then after that, basically what we did, so at this point we have identified all of the possible geographically that makes sense site. So now what we needed to do was for each of the country, so obviously it has limitations for each of the country. What we've done is collect the solar radiation and temperature data and the load curve of a specific village that was provided from a Leopard partner, and generally technology specific economic and technical parameters. So obviously we needed such things to simulate a, let's say, example grid. So then basically from the data that we were given in terms of load curve for a specific size of population and the solar radiation temperature and the different economic parameters, we could simulate with MemoGrid, which is an IFER proprietary tool, the overall microgrid. So we got all of the different data when it comes to what is the battery state of charge, what is the amount of energy that the PV is covering, which part of the PV energy is going to the battery, like all such energy related parameters and results. And that allowed us to size the microgrid technology. So I don't know, having an idea of how many kilowatt of PV we would need and which kind of battery. So basically running an optimization, simulate the microgrid operation. So also understanding, obviously, it reports if the sizing that you have chosen, it reports the amount of hours that could not be served. As we've seen, that is quite frequently a challenge, especially in rural locations. And yes, generally it gives us back as an output all of these different sizes for the technology. And then this, let's say, size would then be converted and passed on to the LCOE calculation tool. So basically we would have this, let's say, standardized design for this specific population cluster and demand that was provided to us. And then that would be scale down for all of the pre-identified sites that we have identified with Lenny. So basically we would need some social data as the input. So the original microgrid solution could be scaled down or up according to the population size, and generally some economic data for the calculation of the LCE. So we're talking about capex, opex, inflation rate and discount rate, some capex and opex subsidies, like all of these sort of economic parameters, and that would give us the final economic results, which is basically the LCOE of the microgrid, either with the grid cost or without the grid cost, depending on how people would see the business model. So we have these two different type of results according to who could be the target audience. So basically, here is the big overview, which I think it's clear now that we have presented all of the different tools. We start with Lenny. So we have all of these potential sites that we get. We get the grid length, and we get all of the list of sites that have been geographically identified. Then we go on to the MemoGrid tool, which optimizes the grid sizing and the technology sizing for the typical village that was shared by the partners. And then we move on to the LCOE tool that gives us the final answer on the LCOE calculation. So basically, yes, what have we needed? Here I have a few slides for Benin and for Senegal, but generally I won't be going into the details of this because I feel then we lose maybe a bit of the time. But generally what we needed as input data is obviously the building distribution by type of customer. So each type of customer has associated a different load curve because it varies obviously a lot if it is a commercial client, if it is a productive client. So we can imagine a small industry or a small commercial activity, or if it is a residential client. On the technical side, what we used from the results of the MemoGrid application would be the ratio of installed capacity per technology. So basically that's the way in which we were able to scale down and up the microgrid solution to the tailored identified site. Obviously, the electricity demand that we can see divided by type of customer. And yeah, these are just general economic numbers that obviously can be changed according to the different scenario that we identify. An 8% discount rate, a 1.5% degrade rate. I feel those are quite classical, but obviously they can be changed in the tool, and then you have different scenarios. For Senegal, yeah, same thing basically. Just we had a different type of how do you say, sample village. So we have also different types of customer distribution. These obviously were data that were provided by the partners in the Leopard project, so they were given to us. And again, different ratio in this case of installed capacities for the different technologies, and obviously it also needs to reflect the economic numbers for Senegal to have the same analysis. Here we have the technical data that have been used for the technologies, which are the same for both. So it was assumed also to have a good comparison in between the two countries to use the same technical parameters. And then I think this is the most interesting part. I don't know, Isaac, if you want to take over again to describe the first, Lenny results.
Yeah, sure. So this was the interactive map that I described earlier. Essentially what this is it's a combination of both all potential sites that we identified with the Lenny methodology, which are in blue. And then in green are also sites which were co-identified by another partner, sort of like we had a pre-existing list of settlements that were considered to be already good candidates. But then because our methodology is capable of working on the entire country simultaneously, we merged the two. So anywhere where it's green, it indicates that it's a site that we identified with our tool and analyzed. But the blue areas are also just sites that were not identified ahead of time, but we analyzed anyway. And the orange map markers were places which were identified in the list of settlements that were given to us, but we were really we didn't identify any data with our methodology. So like it was a location which said that there should be a settlement here, but then when we analyzed it, there actually just was no settlement at that location. And that can happen sometimes. You just have problems in the data. Maybe it was a wrong coordinate or a place which was not named properly or something like that. But as you can see, then you were able to click on the map and it would give you information about each settlement as you clicked on it. And all of this information was also bundled into an associated Excel tool, which allowed you to filter on it.
Yep, thank you. So with that, with what Isaac said, we identified 196 potential replication site in Benin, for which we ran the MemoGrid and LCOE tool calculation. And here you can see the main results. So the range for economic feasibility that was given to us from the partner was an LCOE that was anything between 0.40 and 0.47 euro per kilowatt hour. And here you can see in the graph on the left, it is the LCOE calculated without including the cost of the grid installation, and on your right you have the same graph, but with including the cost of the grid installation. So what we see is that we have, I mean, obviously the LCOE is generally dependent to the population size and grid length, apart from some, let's say, unusual cases, and that is either related to maybe it is a settlement that has not a great population, but it is quite sparse, so it has a quite extensive grid length, which is the biggest part of the investment cost, or vice versa, it is quite dense, but it doesn't need that much grid, and then it is obviously, even if it's a high population, it still can have a low LCOE cost. So yes, generally without any additional sensitivity analysis, 144 of the 196 sites that we have identified in Benin meet the economic replication criteria. And obviously, this can be improved, the number of potential sites, if we consider, yes, as we see here, some sensitivity. So basically, the red dots that you see here on the map, they represent all of the sites that would be economically viable without any additional changes, so without considering any capex incentive or without increasing the diesel share. So as of right now, in this configuration that we have run for Benin, the diesel share of the microgrid is 14%, which is quite low. It means that a lot of the potential electricity demand would be met by renewable sources together with a optimal battery sizing. If we look at the blue dots, that means all of the additional sites that would be economically viable if we increase the diesel share from 14 to 25%. So here we would still have a quite low, let's say, diesel share, but that aids in the economic feasibility, because obviously the battery and the PV represent a quite high investment cost when it comes to it. And in the green dot, which I am not really sure if we can see on this, because maybe it is covered by another of the dot, but there's basically only one additional site because we're already at 195, represent the additional sites that would be economically viable if we have a capex subsidy of 30%. So basically, if we consider a capex subsidy of 30%, we could be economically feasible in all of the microgrids that have been identified by the LENI plus filtering with the partner locations. And now, yes, we have the same for Senegal. I don't know, Isaac, if you want to repeat, but I think it is similar to what was said.
It's the same thing as before.
Yeah. So basically here for Senegal, we have more sites. It's 321, and yeah, the map coloring is the same as it was explained before. We have more sites in this case. What we can see here is we had a bit of a let's say, different load curve. I don't know if you remember, but if you look at the load curve from Benin and the load curve from Senegal, it is quite different, also in the terms of peaks. So obviously, the Senegal curve has a much higher peak with an average electricity demand that is quite low. So that obviously brings some challenges when it comes to the microgrid sizing, because obviously you want to cover the peak as well. So you need to oversize your microgrid a bit. And in this sense, the main difference that we see if we keep the same LCOE range for economic feasibility is that only 43 sites out of the 321 that we have just identified would meet the economic replication criteria. So obviously here we had to do a bit more of a sensitivity, or let's say a farther sensitivity to understand which could be the economic conditions in which we could reach the higher amount of sites. So in the red dots, again, you see all of the sites that would be viable without any changes. In the blue dots here, we have a different case. So basically the blue dots would be all of the sites that, additional sites on top of the red, that would be economically viable if we have a capex subsidy of 30%. And on the green dots, and that brings us to 296 out of 321. And the green dots is if the capex subsidy is increased to 40%, and that would mean that we could replicate the solution or potentially replicate the solution with economic viability in all of the 321 sites. In this case, we didn't consider any increase in the diesel share, because the diesel share that was given to us either by the partner or by the optimization of the microgrid was already quite high. So we didn't feel comfortable with increasing that further. I believe the diesel share in this case must have been already, I think, around 40%. So we felt like it made sense to keep this hybridization approach in which we favor renewable electricity production. So basically, yes, what we've learned from all of this, Lenny is a great tool when it comes to geographical prefeasibility, and can also identify more settlements than the ones that have been provided by the different partners. So obviously it is a great tool when it comes to understanding where one could locate a microgrid, even without already knowing which sites. MemoGrid, which is the tools that we have used for the microgrid sizing and designing and optimization. Obviously, the optimization process aids in lowering the electricity prices, because an optimized system requires less investment. And the decontainerized microgrid solution that we've seen installed in the first slide, in the first picture, it is found to be replicable in a lot of potential sites. So we've seen, according to the different sensitivities, we can basically reach all of the 196 sites in Benin and 321 in Senegal. So obviously, yeah, short presentation, but a lot of different parameters. As we all know, I believe we're all familiar with it, influence the economics of a microgrid project, being that the population size, the grid length, and obviously the renewable source availability. As I said, there are some limits to this study, like the fact that we did not tailor the microgrid design optimization for all of the almost, I don't know, 500 and something projects that we would have here. So we use one solution and then we scale down according to the population or electricity demand, if you will. So that is obviously something that once you identify a site that you would like to apply the solution on, you would need to rerun optimization to have the best case scenario for that site. But yeah, that's it on our side. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer. Thank you.
Great presentation, really cool. I do like the fact that you can just do pre-feasibility studies on a site without actually, because usually that's one of the most costly parts, like doing data collection to find the suitable site. So that's a very impressive tool. Fantastic, thank you for that. Are there any questions for Claudia and Isaac? You can type them in the chat, you can raise your hand, anything. Okay, I think people are feeling shy today, which is bad because I want to request guys to turn on their cameras for a group photo, please. Please turn on your cameras. We can just have a quick, like just for 1 minute. It doesn't matter if you're in your pajamas or if you're, yeah, like it's fine. We don't judge. There we go. More people, that'd be great. Oh, it's okay if your camera is not responding well. Okay, I think I've gotten some of them. Let me check the other. Yeah, because I can see that there are some places I'm not getting the right. Give me a second, one more picture. And then we're nearly done, we're nearly done. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. You can turn off your cameras and go back into hiding. So I think we had a really great session. Right, before we sign off, because we have 7 minutes left, please, we're going back to Slido so that you can just give us feedback on this session and to let us know what other topics you are, because I feel like I'm sure there's a lot more that you wanted to learn. So maybe we could also arrange for this another time. Like I said, please share your LinkedIn profiles in the chat so that maybe you can form a community of practice for good digitalization. You never know where these things could go. But first, you need to, of course, form a solid community. So let me share my screen. Oh. I think you can skip this. Yes, just one question for the next 6 minutes before we close. Just answer this. So again, just either scan the QR code using your phone, or you can join at slido.com and put in the number 23 15 48 6. Or you have no questions, I can also skip to the next one because seems nobody mentioned anything last time I asked. I'm seeing 3 people typing. I'll let this happen.
Hello. I
Hello?
have just one question about
Yeah,
the
please.
tool. Yeah, is it an open source tool or can everyone access it and use it?
I assume you're asking about the tools that we presented
Lenny.
in the Leopard.
Yeah.
Yes, in the final part, yes.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, they're both proprietary. So no, they're not open access. We would have to discuss with mostly EDF, that is our let's say overarching company, whatever you want to call it, because they have the final saying in how we share the tools made in IFER. But I don't know, Isaac, if you have more insights
Okay.
on the matter. Yeah.
No, I don't. Everything we do has to go through EDF. They are closed and proprietary. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think that answers one
Yeah, I
question
see
on
one
the.
of the questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you can talk about the difficulties you faced when you're doing the research.
That's directed at us.
Yes, I think that's probably a question.
Yeah, I would say probably the difficulties that I had primarily was just locating data, because it is like rural sub-Saharan Africa might be one of the hardest places to get any amount of precise data in the world. Like it's just very, very, very sparse in what you can find. And so what I was leaning on mostly was open source data sets that are just doing a lot of sort of like inferential let's say like assumptions based on statistical census data that has been like redistributed to areas as being like identified on satellite images as being settlements, right? So like to actually identify building footprints that have been identified by satellite images. Like I did not do that. This is being done by various groups. I think there's 2 main ones from Microsoft and Google, which I think I used the most, but there was also some work done by Meta, formerly Facebook, because at the time they were doing a lot of worldwide digitalization. And so essentially it was just sort of cobbling together all these different data sources and using them as proxies to try to like best model the structure of a settlement for estimating the length and the population from it. It's really hard to tell even if like a lot of this data is accurate. Like we would essentially have after a clusterization, you would have a settlement and it says, okay, well, it's estimated to be 1,563 people in this settlement, but like, how do you validate that? Like, you don't really know. So you just kind of have to take it at face value and assume that that number is really more of like an order of magnitude. Like, to say that something has like 3,000 people, or let's say 5,000 people, you know that it's going to be significantly larger than something that's around 1,000. But it could be anywhere from like 3,000 to 8,000. You don't really know.
Okay. Thanks for that answer. I'll skip to the latest question, which I was seeing directed at Claudia. How do your mini-grid tools, I suppose, handle dynamic loads and initial low demand, assuming they have to meet their CapEx and OpEx costs?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I unfortunately did not design the tool. So it was designed by a former colleague at iFirst. I've only used it. So I am not really into all of the, let's say, technical modeling equation that are behind.
Okay, well, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yes.
Maybe I can answer this question about the main challenge in e-cooking in Kenya. I think for a lot of people, it's definitely I suppose the preconceived notions that cooking with electricity is expensive, because it can be sometimes. I know, like, for example, my mom would tell me never to touch the oven because immediately she sees a spike in her bill. And yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's not, the word ignorance is a bit, it's a bad word to use, I think. Maybe just like lack of information on what kinds of e-cooking appliances you can get. Because, for example, using like a pressure cooker, people also have a bias against pressure cookers, because the initial typical fireplace ones did cause a lot of accidents to some people, but the e-cooking ones tend to be a lot more safe. They have safety implements in them. So I can say e-cooking just needs people, you need more people to actually experience electric cooking appliances. And you can actually do that in Steamer Plaza in town. You can go to the, what you call this again? Pick and Power. They have, like, I think on Mondays and Thursdays, they have cooking shows where you can actually see how electric cooking appliances are used, and how you can actually calculate how much it costs per watt, or per kilowatt in this case. There's a question on, are there any studies or work being done in Uganda? I'm not sure. I think that one would have to find out. I'm sorry about that. E-cooking, how are smart grids helping address the intermittency challenges posed by solar and wind energy in different regions? I don't know if Harrison or James would like to answer this question. I cannot see if someone has a hand up, so. Yes, Harrison. This particular question.
I do believe that the questions of intermittency in most cases, in as much as it's caused by the weather. Let's say, for example, for your solar mini grid, there's a certain cloud cover that comes and covers your area, and so you lose your generation. In the main grid, on a large scale plant, you'll end up losing the entire plant, and that could have a cascading effect to the entire grid. Also on the wind, sometimes it could be an overspeed of the turbines, and so you end up losing the turbines and so on. So the reason, the other one is a technical reason, because at the heart of these systems is that you have inverters. So basically solar and wind, the inverter-based resources, and what they do is that they, at a large scale, they can currently they can only operate where the external grid or an external mechanism is providing the voltage and the frequency, the voltage and frequency reference. An interesting solution to that is tied to a smart grid would be the use of the grid forming inverters that are going to mimic the traditional legacy generating generators and turbines, whereby they have their own source voltage and frequency, and so on. Also, by the use of the data in a smart grid, you'll be able to predict like the near-term weather patterns, so you can tell maybe if you're using satellite data, maybe you have the speeds of the clouds and the location of them, the speeds of the wind, like in the jets, like the jets that we have in Kenya, in Ezekiel and Bubisa. You can tell at any specific time when you're going to have an overspeed of the turbines, or maybe you're going to lose a generation. So being able to predict that is also going to help to manage the infrastructure. And so you are able to have backup plans for your power system. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. There's one other question I had seen about adoption or how long it will take for adoption to come up. I think with it's some if you just look at, like, for example, the trajectory of solar adoption in the world globally, you've seen, like, as the prices get cheaper and cheaper, you see more and more people taking up. Even, like, for example, in Kenya, we have a lot of people who have, like, the tiny portable solar panels that can be used to charge a phone or a light or a radio. So I think as more research is done on these particular concepts and technologies, it gets cheaper and cheaper for everyone, because that's one of the major issues with technology, is that so long as the price is high, adoption will only be left to a particular amount of people who can afford it. But as the costs go low, both the capex and opex, it gets cheaper and cheaper. So with that, we hope that with digitization, especially, if we can get more people doing research on this and then also producing more digitization tools and technologies, we can actually get cheaper. So I can't give you an exact timeline. I'm sure someone else with more information would be able to do that. But I think within the next 50 years or 20 years, maybe that's a bit too long, it'll definitely get a lot better. Okay, and then one last question before we release you, because we know we're over time by 5 minutes. So do you have any suggestions or feedback to improve future sessions? Be as critical as possible, because we do need this to actually improve. Great, thank you. Okay, we'll keep using the template. Time utilization improvement, noted. Okay, just let this last people answer, and then we can close for the day. Okay, I'm ready for guys to give the ideas and participate. Okay, we'll definitely see how I can do that. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else typing, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I think we can call in our ASG partners and Odrovia first to wrap up.
Thank you. Thanks, Augusta, for taking that up. I think from our end, especially from the Strathmore team, it's to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you, and we do apologize for the initial the hiccup we had with technology, but I think we've done well, especially as well with time. And I want to say a special thank you to Harrison and James from Strathmore University, who've provided, the excellent technical, in-depth, and practical insights into smart grid implementation within Kenya, as well as Claudia and the team from Leopard, who also shared, the case study from Senegal and Benin. And also, especially to the rest of those who have joined us. Thank you for the questions. We've seen so many questions coming in through the chat, and we've not been able to address all of them, but I think we've tried to cover as much as possible, and we hope that you're happy with the webinar and look forward to having more webinars and engagement on the platform. Please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, and we will circle back regarding sharing the slides. I think we're going to first have a conversation with the speakers, and then we'll be able to share their slides later on. Thank you, and I don't know if any of our colleagues from AESG would like to close.
So hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for allowing us to make a mistake and correct it in good time. We want to say thank you for your patience in listening and your questions. It has been a very interactive session. I can see questions, and I can see comments, and I can see suggestions for improvement. So what I can say going forward is you can check out our LinkedIn page, you can check out our YouTube channel, you can check out the different channels where we have put in much more sessions that we've had. So I'm very sure you can, there's somebody who asked about even biogas and biofuels. We did something similar, I think, 2 months ago. You can find it on the YouTube channel, and then we can improve and add more topics as you have discussed. So we look forward to more sessions with yourselves and your colleagues or any other parties that you feel will be welcome to a circle, and we keep organizing more and more topics that are of interest to yourselves and others. So thank you, and have a lovely, lovely day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.